We always start with tzedakah, so we have our regular tzedakah box here. And why are we today? Why are we here? What is Chanukah? What does Chanukah mean? We know like Pesach means Passover, when the angel of death passed over all the Jewish homes. We know Shavuot, when it's oaths that the Jewish nation took an oath to keep the Torah. We know about Sukkot, which means booth, literally, that God made the clouds and shit like a booth to protect the Jewish people in the desert. So we have a sukkah we sit in, but what is Chanukah? Chanukah means Chanukah, that they rested on the 25th day. The 25th day of Kislev, a miracle happened. So let's go back in the story, what happened. It goes back to the time of Antiochus III. He was the king of Syria. He had fought against Egypt and he won. So he got possession of Israel. Surprisingly enough, Antiochus was a very fair king. He let the Jews pretty much alone, but that was not for long, because soon the Romans came and they fought against Antiochus, and Antiochus lost. And the Romans were the ones who were in charge of Antiochus, and Antiochus had to pay a lot of taxes. And where do you get money from? So he started taxing the Jews. Soon after he died, his son became king, and another generation came. And as the generations came on, they became meaner and meaner to the Jewish people in Israel. Not only were they mean physically when they wanted taxes, but more important to them was the culture. By this time, we're fighting all the wars. The Syrians had joined with Hellenistic, together with Greece. And more than anything else, they wanted was the culture of the Jewish people should not be about God. They could do all the things they want as long as they don't call it God. As a matter of fact, they had made a law that on the horns of the big ox and a buffalo that they were riding, they should write, Jews are not part of God. That is what the Syrian Greeks wanted. And unfortunately, little by little, more people from the Jewish nation had picked up the cultures of the Greeks and became Hellenistic, as they call them. And it was getting very hard. There came a time, there was one group who called themselves the Maccabi, and they decided they were going not to let it happen and continue it all. And in the small hills in Judea, they became the rebels. And they fought against the big Syrian Greek government, where the Syrian Greek government had hundreds and hundreds of horses. The Jews were just rebels, but God was on their side. And on the 25th of Kislev, they had won, they had captured back where the Beis HaMikdash was standing on the hill, all nice and proud. So that is why when we say that on the 25th of Kislev, they rested. And now, let me tell you something interesting. The Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, who just was liberated himself from jail just last week, says that a word is made out of letters. And each letter tells what the word is. And the most important letter is the first letter of the word. So let's take the word Chanukah. Okay, so follow me. The first letter of the word Chanukah is a ches. And what does ches mean? Ches means 8, right? So we have in a word, there is different ways we could explain it. One way is the numerical way. A second way is the meaning. And the third way is the graphics. So I'd like to talk to you about each of those and how it affects us and what we learn from it. Rivkie, could you give me that paper? So let's take the ches again. The number ches If we count the Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet. It's 8. That's all we have to know today in the Hebrew language is till 8. Again, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet. Remember those, okay? So Chet, which looks just like this is how the Chet is in the Torah. In the books that we read in the Siddur, it would be more like a squared off, but in the Torah, it's written like that. And for a very good reason when it comes to the story of Chanukah. So we have Chet, again, is 8, the 8 days of Chanukah, and we're going to have 8 candles eventually. So that's the Chet. But what is the meaning of Chanukah? What is the meaning of the word Chet? Do you know any words that start with the word Chet? Chanukah, right? Then I will teach you today 2 more words. The first one is Cherut, which means freedom, salvation. Well, that's the story of Chanukah, because on Chanukah we got ourselves our freedom from the Greeks. And then the second word is Chitas. Chitas means fear. Some of you may know about it because those who study Chitas, exactly, it's the same acronym. And that's because when we study Chitas, the Chumash, Tanya, and Tehillim, we throw fear amongst our enemies. So the Chet is Chitas. So when the Judean hills were on top by the Maccabees, they threw fear against their enemies. And now comes the last part, the graphic part of the Chet. So let's look at it again and see how it looks like. We have the Vav, if you could see. We have a Zayin, and we have here let's call it a camel's hump or an upside down V. And I will explain to you why it means and how it pertains to our Yom Tov of Chanukah. So, we think Chanukah was just one day, right? The 25th. But let me share with you something of interest. Chanukah is really 3 days of winning of the miracle. The 24th of Kislev, the 25th of Kislev, and the 26th. Why is that, you may ask? And I will answer you to my best of my abilities. On the 24th day of Kislev, that's when the Maccabees, all the Jewish people, won the war. That's when they were able to go into the temple. On the 25th day of Kislev is when they found the little jug of oil. And on the 26th day of Kislev is when the miracle happened. And when they got up the next morning, they thought the candles would be out. But God made a miracle, and there burned the candle the 26th day. And so now let's go back to our Chet. This is the Vav. You remember we were counting the Aleph, Beis? Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Vav is 6. When we think of the number 6, we think of God created the world in 6 days. Creation of the world is in 6 days. And what happens in 6 days? During the week, we all work hard to do what we have to do. And then we have here the Zayin. What number of that? Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin. That's 7. Of course, that's Shabbat. And on Shabbat is a holy day. Wherever we prepared on the whole week, 6 days, then we have Shabbat. Then we know what we eat is what we prepared. And then we have the big camel things. And that's when we get things that we didn't do anything for. We didn't prepare, and we have the reward for preparation, and it all comes from God. So let's go back now to our story that we talked about Chanukah. On the 24th of Kislev, when the Maccabees won the war, that's like the Vav, because You know, it's like the Israelis. Sometimes when they win the war, they think they did it all by themselves. But we know they won because of God's help. So we call it salvation, Teshuos. So the 24th day of Kislev, the winning of the war, would be like the Vav in this letter. And then on the 25th day, they found the little jug of oil. Now, we could mistakenly think it was just happened by itself. It was just, well, sometimes we go in the street and we find a gold. Was it just happening, or did God do something for it to appear? So it's not a miracle. It's not something we did. So it's something in between. So we call it wonders, niflos, in the Hebrew way. So that would be the Zion. It's like we worked for it, we looked for it, we prepared for Shabbat, and we got rewarded. We found the little bit of oil. We found what we worked for. And then we have the hump. And that's what points to God. And that's the 26th of Kislev, when it was a bland miracle, an open miracle that Hashem did, that we were able to have the oil burn for a day, and the rest of the days till new oil was made. So, Hasidus teaches us something interesting. Some of us might not think of it, and others do. Which is the biggest miracle of all these? The one that we did ourselves, and it was like in nature, naturally we won the war with God's help. The one that Hashem made it happen, that we found the jar of oil, or is the biggest miracle the time that it lasted for 8 days? So according to Hasidus, is biggest miracle is the one that looks like it was naturally made. It was just like the sun rises in the morning and it sets at night. The stars come out. That seems like just natural. It's nature, it's teva. So Hasidus teaches us that is the biggest thing. When God seamlessly flows into the actions, flows with our doings, flows with all the things that are happening, that is the biggest miracle. So the biggest miracle is that we can be grateful. So when we wake up in the morning, we open our eyes, we say Modani, we get dressed, we brush our teeth. We have an apartment we live in, either with friends or alone. We can make our own breakfast. We can wash the dishes. We can make a telephone call. We could chat, we could complain. That is the miracle. The miracle is that nature has become so much part of us, that God has implanted in us the feeling of graciousness and thankfulness, and we're together with Hashem. So that's what the lesson of Chanukah is, that every day and all the time, we should appreciate what Hashem does. And the most important to do is to live, enjoy, and smile and love, because that's what Hashem wants us to do with the story of Chanukah. And now I have the pleasure to introduce my fellow sister Shlucha, my newest friend here in Mequon, Mushka, and see what she has to show us.
Thank you, Rebbetzin. Good evening, everybody, and happy Chanukah. Tonight, I'm going to be showing you one of the ways, or a few different ways that I like to eat latkes. So I'm gonna do my best to show it. Please let me know if you can see what's going on over here. So we have a few different things. First of all, we have just traditional fried latkes individually. But then I was thinking, if you're going to be entertaining and wanting to make for a crowd, and to sit and to fry for a long time can be a bit tedious. So what I have here are two big latkes, which you just make your regular latke recipe, and then, like you see here, you just put it on a baking sheet, on a cookie sheet, and and bake it in the oven on 400 until you see that it's nice and crisp and done. And I'm going to show you some toppings. Now here I just have one that I cut up, so you can, dress it and serve it like that. But I'm going to show you how I will dress a big one for a crowd. And yeah, so we'll start with that. So here I have some, a little mayo, lime juice, and dill. So I'm going to use that as my kind of like base on top of the latke. So this is a potato one. The other one that I had was a sweet potato one. So I'm just gonna you don't want to like oversaturate because obviously it's gonna seep in, but just a little generally around, as long as there's a few bites within the bite. And then the topping I'm gonna have on here is, I have here mushrooms that I just sauteed in a bit of oil, obviously going with Chanukah and the oil theme. And I didn't really season it besides for a bit of salt because I think the dill is pretty strong. And then I just put a bit of coconut cream and a bit of tapioca starch to thicken it, but you could just use flour, cornstarch, whatever you have, whatever you like. That's just what I have in my house. And I'll just put those mushrooms on there. And there you have a very Chanukah theme, but saving yourself about 40 minutes in front of the stove. You just put it in the oven and you have yourself latkes for a crowd. And to serve, I would just take a knife and cut into squares, and everybody can help themselves. I'll just cut. There you go, and everyone can just get a little slice of their own, and there you have it. Two more things I'm going to show you. First of all, I have here some of my favorite toppings for latkes. So this one is, I just put in the food processor, avocado, green onions or scallions, I'm not sure what they're generally called in America. I grew up calling them scallions or spring onions, with a bit of lime juice or lemon juice, salt, and I also put in some parsley. You can put in parsley, cilantro, or dill, whatever you like. So I'm going to put a bit of that on over here. So this is my example of when you have all those leftover latkes in the fridge, and because you made so many for the Chanukah party, and you obviously overcated because that's what we do. So what I end up having a lot on Chanukah is about a Tupperware of leftover latkes, and then you end up eating them for breakfast or for lunch. So this is a breakfast or lunch version. So put some of the avocado on it, and then top it with the sunny side up, and there you have a lunch, a breakfast, a dinner even if you need. And obviously I would probably like throw a few vegetables. You could even put a bed underneath of arugula or spring mix, and that's one of my favorite things to do. Another thing that you could do is if you're making it fresh, like you planned it, is I'll just make one big latke and then I'll have that on top. That's just really, really yummy. And lastly, this is something that I just find is really good and delicious. Like I'd even put a bit of this on here. This is blended up, just cilantro, parsley, jalapeno, and red wine vinegar and salt and pepper. So that's something sorry. That is something that personally I ate with my latkes tonight, and I'm going to, that's it, just give you one more look over of everything that we've got here. So here's a big sweet potato one that you could dress with the same thing, or dress, what I would do also is take the avocado one and put that on and then put some kind of salsa on top. There are so many options, and I hope that you got some ideas of something that you can make for your family. And Sarah and I wish you a very happy Chanukah. And I would like to pass on to Yehudis Rapoport, who's going to share with you a bit about why we make latkes and eat donuts on Chanukah and about the miracle of the oil.
So nice to be here with everyone as we celebrate the first night of Hanukkah together. We could all enjoy seeing everyone's latkes and donuts and all the delicious delicacies that we prepare for Hanukkah. So thank you very much, Mushka. Some really yummy and great, delicious looking dishes. Great idea to make that huge flat latke and everyone can share and enjoy. Definitely a lot easier than frying hundreds of latkes, but really, really looks nice. And those toppings look really delicious. So we'll have to try them out. Mushka will share some recipes with us so that we can all try them in our own homes this Hanukkah. So what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about, like Mushka just said and just demonstrated, the latkes, why we eat latkes, and then following me, we're going to have Sheina, who's going to talk a little bit about the donuts and show us some very delicious Hanukkah donuts. And it's all about, the reason we do it is because of the miracle of the oil, right? So many of us are familiar with Hanukkah. We light the menorah and we kindle the flame and keep the flame going. So Hanukkah is all about light, all about spreading light, spreading goodness, spreading wonderful things to others. And it all starts with the miracle that happened in the Holy Temple, right? When the Maccabees came in to rededicate the temple after it was defiled and terrible destruction and terrible impurities were brought into the temple by the Greeks. Finally, the Maccabees on the 24th day of Kislev were able to go in, do some cleaning up, and on the 25th is when they rededicated the temple. And we have the very famous story, right, of the miracle of the oil. So what's so significant about this miracle of oil? What's so significant about lighting the candles on Hanukkah? So just to understand, I'm going to show everybody. So here we have a couple menorahs here to show everyone. So as you can see, I have my menorah over here, which has 8 branches, and the 9th is the shamash, right? That's the typical Hanukkah menorah. Well, in the Holy Temple, in the Beit HaMikdash, the menorah actually had 7 branches and the shamash. Because the actual menorah that God had instructed Moses in the desert to carve out of one piece of gold was actually 7 branches and a shamash and the kindling flame. But what happened? So why do we light a menorah with 8? Why don't we light the menorah with 7 branches? And the reason is because of the miracle of the oil. When the Jews came back into the Holy Temple, right, and they were looking high and low to light the menorah in the temple, which was a daily ritual that was done. Again, the idea of spreading light, bringing light. And we know that our soul is compared to a candle of flame. In Judaism, a flame has a tremendous amount of significance. As Jewish women, we know we light our candle every Friday night for Shabbat. We light candles for our family. We're all about spreading light and kindness and goodness. So the Jews come back inside and they would like to light the candles and they finally get rid of all the impurities that the Greeks had put inside. But what happens, right? We all know this. They cannot find pure oil. What the Greeks had done when they came into the temple is, as the Rebbetzin mentioned earlier, they had no issue if we were cultural and if we looked at the Torah as a storybook. Their issue was they did not want us to have the heart and soul of Judaism, to be religious Jews and to have that belief in Hashem. And they tried to take that away from us, but as we know, they didn't. Because here we are today in 2020, right? In the middle of a Corona situation, we are celebrating Hanukkah all over the world. Our homes are lit up tonight. Every single Jewish home by now, even the West Coast has lit their candles. Everyone, right? From Australia all the way to America, we are all lighting our candles. We are continuing to shine that light because of what this light symbolizes and represents way back to when the Jews lit their menorah in the Holy Temple. And when the Jews come inside, they find oil. But all of the jars of oil, their seals are broken. They're cracked off. So they cannot find any oil that has the seal of the priest, a seal that shows it's kosher. You know, like when we buy items in a supermarket, right? We look for the kosher symbol. And even more so, we don't want to buy items that are open because of health reasons. How much more so for spiritual reasons? What the Greeks did is they went and they broke every single seal. They wanted to say to us, what the seal that the Kohen Gadol stamped on this doesn't mean anything. Oil is okay, but not with the seal of the priest or the high priest. And what were we going to tell them? Oh no. When we came back into the temple, we searched, we looked, we went and cleaned up everything. And they couldn't find any pure oil. Yes, they found oil, but not pure oil. And of course, I mean, if you think about it in a situation like that, why not just use any oil? Because the Jews wanted to show the world, they wanted to show for generations to come that it's not just about using oil, it's about using pure oil, bringing purity into our lives in every single thing that we do. In our Torah observance, in our relationships with other people, and everything we do, it has to have that spark, that spiritual spark. And that's where the miracle comes in. Finally, the Jews find one very tiny flask of oil that not only does it have a seal of a priest, it has a seal of the high priest. It's the purest oil possible. But as we know, it was only enough for the menorah to be lit for one night. Now, it took a couple of days in those times. The oil where they got the fresh olive oil for the Holy Temple was actually processed in a city called Chanukah in the north of Israel. And it would take a messenger several days to get back and forth in order to bring the new oil. But they didn't delay. And of course, they lit the menorah that first night. And miraculously, we're here to tell the tale. It lasted for 8 days and nights until the messenger returned with the new oil. That is why we light 8 nights of Hanukkah, and we have our menorah of 8. Of course, once again, when the Holy Temple will be rebuilt, hopefully very, very soon, once again, we will light the menorah of 7 in the temple. But Hanukkah, on Hanukkah, we commemorate the miracle that lasted for 8 days. Now, what's interesting is if you think about it, why 8 days? Why not again a menorah of 7? Because, they had enough for one day, so the miracle was really for 7 days. But the rabbis explained that there were many miracles involved in the story of Hanukkah. And so we light for 8 days. Some explain that the first night is for the miracle of the war, right? A very tiny army was able to defeat a huge monstrosity of an army with every type of weapon and ammunition available. And yet we won. And that is one of the reasons that the rabbis explain why we light for 8 nights, even though we did have oil enough for the first night. So this is just a little bit of an understanding of what is so valuable, what is so important about lighting the candles every single night. Another very fascinating thing is if you look at our menorah, we began tonight, right? We all lit our candles, and I saw some of your candles, and it's really special to be able to see you all on this first night of Hanukkah. And on the first night, we lit 1. And on the second night, we add and light. So we will light 2, but we will begin with our second candle, correct? And then we will light our first candle, and so on and so forth until all 8 lights are kindled next week for all 8 nights of Hanukkah. And the message again is for us to remember and to always keep in mind the idea of adding light. Ma'alim b'kodesh. We always want to add in light. We always want to increase in the good things that we do and in the light that we spread in this entire world. And that is what's so unique and special about this holiday. And it's a holiday that's a favorite probably for everyone, because there's something so unique and special about the warmth and the candles and the customs, the Hanukkah customs that we all do in our homes that continue to spread this special warmth. The 5th Chabad Rebbe was once asked, the Rebbe Rashab was once asked, what is a chassid? A person asked him, what is a chassid? And the Rebbe Rashab answered, a chassid is a lamplighter. Back in the day before electricity, every town, every village, every city had a lamplighter who went from, went around the town to light up the area. And he said, a chassid is a lamplighter. Everyone can be a lamplighter. We ignite the spark and the soul in every single person, and we continue to do it. And there's one last message that I'm going to share about the oil that is also a very important and powerful message that we have from the miracle of the oil and the story of Chanukah. So we just saw Mushka's latkes, and I'm sure many of you tonight already started frying some latkes, or you're thinking about frying latkes, or maybe after this program, you're going to go and fry some latkes because you want to have some, right? And the oil in general has a very interesting component to it. And it's an important lesson that we can take from this miracle of oil on Hanukkah. Oil, on the one hand, is a liquid that does not mix with other liquids, right? We did this as kids. It's science experiments. If you put oil in a cup and then you put water or vice versa, the oil rises to the top. It separates. Yet, as you will see when you make your latkes and you put them on your little paper towel or napkin or something to help get that oil out of the latke, a bit of it, we see that oil also saturates whatever it comes in contact with. It becomes one with it. It really gets completely saturated in that paper towel or wherever it might be that you put the oil in or on. And that is another very important lesson that we can see. So on the one hand, oil separates, and on the other hand, oil saturates. As Jewish women, Jewish mothers, Jewish grandmothers, Jewish educators, the movers and the shakers of the Jewish people are the women. I mean, and the impact that we have on this world. We recognize that there are times that we must separate. There are times that we have to recognize what is permissible for us to do and what is not. And even if the whole world is doing it, we rise above and we don't do it. But yet, the things that are important and the things that we know that we have to get involved in, they must become one with us, saturated, a part of us in a very important and beautiful way. So these are just a few thoughts that we can take from this very special holiday, from the oil, from the lights of the menorah. May we continue to shine our light wherever we go. As we know, our menorah is lit either opposite the doorpost on the other side of the mezuzah or at a window, right? It's actually in biblical times, they would light their menorah outside the door. Right outside, there were these little areas where they would light the menorah to shine the light to the entire world. And it's incredible because that is what we are doing today as well. So may our menorah shine bright. May our lives continue to be filled with much light and joy. And with that, I would like to share this evening with Sheina Luchins. But before I bring Sheina onto the screen, I would like to wish her a very happy birthday. Sheina celebrated her birthday today, Erev Chanukah. What a very special day, or the day before. And we're very happy to be able to celebrate close proximity of your birthday with you. So Sheina will now take oil to the next level with her delicious donuts.
Thank you, Dee. And happy Hanukkah to everybody. So after that really thorough and inspiring presentation on all the oil, we're gonna use it in a deeper way than we use latkes by making donuts, which is all the way in. So I have a recipe that I tried for the first time last week. I actually happened upon it because for years we would make my mother's recipe, which is a regular donut recipe. A lot of people sometimes will buy like store-bought dough, which makes it easier, or make donuts from scratch. So my mother would always make it from scratch, and it was a regular recipe. But I remember mixing it and waiting for it to rise. We had to make sure to make it before we ate Hanukkah dinner, and it was like a whole process, which I love doing. Great childhood memories. But I was thinking there must be like something easier. So I actually happened upon this recipe this year, and like I said, tried it out last week, and it is insanely easy, if I may say so, easier than using store-bought dough, because store-bought dough you still need to like shape and rise and all that stuff. Not to knock store-bought dough, it's very convenient, but I just found that this is really, really cool and easy. So this donut recipe has 2 ingredients. That's it. I actually have it right here. It's basically, it's yogurt and flour. So 2 important things. It is milchik, but you can make it non-dairy by using coconut yogurt. People have done that. It totally works, and they sell that in most grocery stores. I think the company is So Delicious that has like all the Parv ice creams, and they have their coconut yogurt, which is amazing. Works the same exact way. And then the flour is self-rising flour. So I had to make sure I went out and bought special self-rising flour. But it is basically, that's it. The 2 ingredients, easiest thing ever, because there's also no rising. So it's 1 cup self-rising flour and 7 ounces of yogurt. So I actually used this giant glass. This is my dairy measuring cup, and there are ounces marked on there. So I just did it right below the 8-ounce line, and then just dumped in a cup of flour, the self-rising flour, mixed it together literally for 40 seconds, not even maybe. And then I put it in the Ziploc bag. So I already fried a little bit of it for my kids before they went to sleep. But it makes probably enough for like, I would say 20 to 25 small donuts. And obviously the kids had more than one. So you could, see how that works for your family, however much you guys want. But here's what the dough looks like. It's kind of like a creamy, like mushy dough. And it's like kind of like off-white color. I'm actually going to fry them on the spot just to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to flip my camera. Hold on. And I'm going to try to do it a little bit fancy. There we go. All right, just making sure you guys can see it. Yep. All right, so there's the oil, nice and hot. And basically you just kind of like plop it in, just like that. Whoop. Kind of just squeeze it out. The cool thing about it was that when I was squeezing them out, for some reason you squeeze it out every time, like, with your own hand, but they always turn out to be kind of around the same exact like shape and size, which is really cool. They look pretty uniform. And as you can see, my oil is actually a little bit too hot, but they actually float to the surface right away. And then they fry up really nicely. Sometimes I have to use a spoon and like flip them over so that they get browned on both sides. And then once those are done, I'm going to take them out in a moment. But I plop them on this plate. These are ones that I made. I didn't frost them yet. So they turn out to be, like I said, pretty uniform looking, even though you're squeezing them out of the bag. You just squeeze them out with like the same hand motion each time. And they're kind of pretty much the same size, which is really cool. And then I didn't even do anything too fancy. I just got a bowl of powdered sugar. And then you kind of take the ones that are blank and you just kind of toss them up. And there you go. They're all coated. They are delicious. You can also dip them in jam if you want. I never tried filling these, so I'm not sure if they fill well, but I love just making them with the powdered sugar. And like I said, the cool thing is there's absolutely no rising time. It's literally you mix the yogurt and the flour, the non-dairy yogurt or the regular yogurt. People also use Greek yogurt, by the way. And then you kind of just squeeze them out and fry them. That's it. And I actually made the dough in advance today. I made it midday, put it in my fridge, took it out, and it was all ready to fry. So you can make it on the spot. You can make it in the morning. It takes literally 45 seconds to make the dough. And that's it. Those are the beautiful donuts. Hope you guys enjoy them. They are really yummy. They definitely taste like they're made with yogurt though, so heads up. They're like yummy yogurt donuts. All right, with that, I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Hoodie, who is going to explain some cool insights about the dreidel.
Thank you, Sheina. That was lovely. See my dreidel headband? Because I'm talking about dreidels. I hope everyone's doing great. Happy Hanukkah, Freilich Hanukkah. So dreidels, the Yiddish word for a spinning top. And we know the traditional reason for the spinning top was because the Jewish kids were not allowed to learn Torah, and they would be learning Torah in the forest. And when the Greek soldiers came, they would take out their dreidels, quickly put away their books, and they would spin the dreidels. So that's like the traditional story of why we play the dreidel. I'm sure you've also heard of the fantastic anecdote about the reason why what we celebrate on Hanukkah is that the Greeks celebrated more than anything. They celebrated looks, exercise, sports, and fashion. So on Hanukkah, we Jewish people eat latkes and donuts and oil and as much sugar as possible, so we never, God forbid, end up looking like the Greeks. So putting that joke aside, we play the dreidel, a four-sided top with the four letters, and it has the point at the top that joins those four letters. We have the nun, the gimel, the hey, and the shin. Nun is for nisht, neutral. When you spin the dreidel and you get a nun, you don't put anything into the pot. Nothing happens. Gimel is gantz, which means whole. You take the whole pot. Hey means halb. You take half the pot. And shin is stellarain. You put in a penny into the pot. Okay. Now, as much as this is a nice way to learn about the dreidel, we also have the spiritual significance and the spiritual psychology of what the dreidel represents. So each and every one of us as human beings and as Jewish people have four passions. We have the passion for knowledge. We want to know, we want to learn, we want to delve deep into things, we want to understand. We have that passion. The second passion that we all have is we have the passion for power. Not always for the good reasons, but we want to control. We want to have success. That's something that each of us crave. The third power that we all have is we have physical cravings and habits, whether it's candy, chocolate, whatever is going on, whatever physical cravings that we have. And the fourth one, the last one, is we all have the passion to be loved and to be connected, and that idea of attachment. We all want to be attached. We all want to have that connectivity with another person. And many, many times there is a conflict between these four passions. And on Chanukah, what we do is we play the dreidel. What happens with the dreidel? All four sides meet up at one point. Okay, so if we look at this from a little bit of a more mystical perspective, the B'nai Yisachar, who was a rabbi that lived in the, I think it was the 1500s, but he explained it a little bit differently. The nun, the gimel, the hay, and the shin. He said gimel is for good. The passion that we have for our body, for our physical cravings. The shin is for seichel, the passion that we have for knowledge, how much we want to know. Okay, so that's the gimel and the shin. It's a little bit of a different order, but it's the same four letters. The hay is for hakol. I want everything. I want all that power. And the nun is for nefesh, that soulful connection that we want to be loved. And these are all four parts of the human soul. And a lot of times there's conflict in each of these passions. And what we have to remember, that Yiddishkeit, Judaism, teaches us that they all come from one point. Each part of these passions are part of our journey, and they're playing a role, but they all come to one point, which is known as the Pentaliyah, the point of the neshama that remembers that we are all part of Hashem, and we are all part of God, and we all are here for one reason, which is to make the world a better place. And so we should never be afraid. It says, Mika Amcha Yisrael Gai Echad Ba'aretz. Who is like our nation that is one nation in this earth? The whole concept of the dreidel is that oneness, that point that we all come to. So many, many times our lives literally spin in all different directions, and it falls on different sides. It could fall on one side, it could fall on a different side. But at the end of the day, what we need to remember is that reflection of oneness that we each have, and to remember that we all come from that one place of Hashem, our neshama, our Jewish soul, and that's what we need to focus on. And with that, we will become our best versions of ourselves. And I would like to wish you all, with that thought, a happy Chanukah. And without further ado, introduce my sister-in-law, Rivkie, who is going to talk about women. And thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Hudi. A happy Hanukkah, a freilich Hanukkah to everybody. So nice to be here. I'm actually talking to you from my mother's home, and it just feels so perfect to be in her kitchen, hearing delicious recipes. And I think this is the center of all the most delicious and gourmet food. One of the famous Hanukkah stories is about a city called Basulia, where the Jews were persecuted. We know that during the story of Hanukkah, the Jews were suffering very, very much, as Hudi just shared, that they played the dreidel. This was something that they did because they were hiding, that they were learning Torah. They were persecuted everywhere. And in Basulia, this was a city that was suffering terribly. And there was a really mean general, a horrible person, very, very, he was ruthless and strong. He had no pity on men, women, or children, whoever he captured. And the city of Basulia, they were holding him off, and they were stopping him from entering. And what this General Holofernes decided to do was to cut off all the food supply from this city, and no water and no food was in or out. And the people, he was hoping to starve them slowly, and then he would capture them. The people were really, really suffering. And they went to the leadership, the Jewish leadership led by Uzziah, and they all met him in the center of in the town square, and they said, Uzziah, we cannot take this pain anymore. We cannot take the suffering. Our children are hungry. We think it is just better to surrender to Holofernes. We cannot deal with all the suffering that our families are going through. Maybe surrendering is better than what we have. And Uzziah said to the Jewish people, he said, what about having faith in God? God is going to help us. And they said, God is going to help us. Look at us. Does it look like God is helping us? Look at how we're suffering. We just cannot take another moment of it. So the Jewish leadership said, you know what? Give us 5 days. Give us 5 days to see that Hashem is going to help us. And in 5 days, if there is no help from Hashem, then we are going to agree with you and we will surrender. The people were pacified with that for a little bit. Reluctantly, they all left. Everybody left except for one person. All the townspeople were gone. One woman remained. Her name was Yehudit. She stood there and she addressed Uzziah and the elders as they were getting ready to leave. And she said, why do you test God, giving him only 5 days in which to send us his help? If you truly have faith in Hashem, you must never give up in your trust in him. Besides, don't you know that surrendering to Halifernes is worse than death? Yehudit was the noble daughter of Yochanan, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. She was blessed with an extraordinary charm and grace and beauty, and mostly respected for her modesty, her righteousness, and her devoutness. Her words made a strong impression on Uzziah and the elders. And they said, you're quite right, but what are we going to do? I mean, our people are hungry. Only a big rain could fill our cisterns right now, and it's not the rainy season. They said to her, maybe you could pray for all of us. And she said, all of us need to pray. We all need to daven to Hashem, and we all need to think about what we can do. And she said, Uzziah, I have an idea. I want to go and talk to General Halifernes. I believe that I can help the situation. And he said, what? Do you know what a risk it is? There's almost no chance that you will come out of visiting this ruthless general alive. She said, please give me permission to leave the city gates. I want to talk to Halifernes. And so he did. And she went with her maid, and they prepared beautiful baskets of bread. And they went and they came to the gates, and the generals, the soldiers of Halifernes said, hey, who are you and what are you doing? She said, I have a special message for General Halifernes. And they brought her to his tent. And she entered the tent. And he said, why are you here? And he was interested. This beautiful woman came to talk to him. And she said, you can see that I'm a Jew. I have heard about you, that you are the bravest person, and you have conquered city after city, and I want to help you. I have an idea for how you can conquer the city of Basulia. She said, he said, you can? What is the idea? She said, right now, the reason you cannot conquer them is because they have faith in God. And God is on their side. Once God is off their side, you'll be able to conquer them very easily. As it is, they're very weak, they're very hungry. So if we wait a little while, the Jews are going to be so desperate because we haven't let any food in or out, that they're going to start eating non-kosher animals. And then their faith is going to go downhill, and God is going to get mad at them. It's going to be a perfect situation for you to jump in, and you'll be able to capture them all. He said, great, but how will I know that moment when they're going to start eating the non-kosher meat? She says, don't worry. I will check on them every day, and I will tell you. He said, great. He said, if you're correct, you will have the honor of becoming my wife. And so every day she was going to go back and forth, and he told all his soldiers, no one is to touch her. Whoever touches her will be put to death. And she went back and she sent a message to Uzziah, Uzziah, David, pray to Hashem, help is going to happen. I have made a connection with Halifernes. One day when she went back to visit Halifernes, he said to her, you know, my soldiers, their morale is going a little lower now because they're sitting around doing nothing. We got to move soon. She said, that's great. I think it's a couple days away now. It's looking like they're almost at that point where they're going to start eating the non-kosher food. I think we're just a couple days now. He said, are you sure? She said, yes. He said, if that's the case, tonight we celebrate. She said, great. She went back and she prepared, and the story is famous, a huge basket full of special cheeses and strong wines and other delicacies, and she went back to his tent. And he had prepared a huge feast, and he said to her, Yehudit, please partake of this beautiful meal that I have prepared for you. And she said, no, Your Honor, I have brought food for you. I am known as the best cheesemaker in all of our city. You must taste my cheeses. And she fed him cheese, and she fed him wine, and more cheese, and more wine. And before you knew it, he was drunk and asleep. And the story is that she took his sword from his sheath, and she said a prayer to Hashem, and she beheaded him. And then she took his head, and she wrapped it in her basket, and she quietly left the area of Holofernes' soldiers. And she went back to Uzziah, and she showed him, I can imagine that, what she had. And she said, Uzziah, tomorrow morning, we must attack. We must attack Holofernes' army and surprise them. And then they're going to go and run to Holofernes to find out what to do. And there's going to be a state of confusion when they find that he's dead. And that's exactly what happened. And the Jews won them and crushed them. And this was a huge part of the success of the battle of the Jews against the Syrian Greeks and the miracle of Chanukah. And the reason I chose this story today lies in the very essence of the name of Yehudit, the heroine of our story. Yehudit means Jewess, a female Jew. All of us here on this chat, we are a Yehudit. We have it inside of us to have the faith, keep the emunah and the bitachon strong, no matter what darkness, what situation we find ourselves in. We are the Yehudis of our homes. We are the Yehudis of our community, and we are the ones that hold the emunah and hold the bar of faith. And also, like Yehudit, not only did she have emunah and bitachon, faith and trust, she took the initiative, and she herself went and did and found a solution and tried to do her best, and Hashem gave her the rest. And we ourselves are the ones that must always take the initiative to do what must be done for the benefit of our families and our communities and our Torah. With that in mind, I'm listening to all the amazing chefs on tonight, and I'm like in awe of the delicious food. I chose something simple, basic, but delicious. And in honor of Chanukah and Yehudit, I chose a Greek salad. And it's a tradition to eat, many people have a tradition to eat dairy because of Yehudit serving the cheese to the general. So I have a basic Greek salad, which is easy to prepare, as we all know. But what's special about my salad is the dressing, and the dressing has the feta cheese right in the dressing. And it's really easy because you don't need a blender or anything like that. You just mix up some feta cheese and basil and oil and some chopped garlic, and I can give anybody the amounts if you want it, and some lemon juice, and you just mix it with a fork, and you pour it over your Greek salad, and you have a delicious, delicious salad. It's good for lunch. Here we go. Oops. Here. We have this. We have our Greek salad, and then you pour over. Voila. Happy Hanukkah. Thank you for the opportunity to share tonight. I want to introduce my mother, the chef of all chefs, and is going to share with us something special that she has prepared.
A good Hanukkah. It's so wonderful to be with you. I just took advantage and I'm joining you all once again. So I'd like to share with you a few thoughts and some treats. You know, there's other things that happened on the 25th of Kislev. It goes back a little bit further than the story of Hanukkah. Let's travel back in time when the Jewish people were in the desert and they were going to build a Mishkan. And they worked very hard to get everything ready like God had instructed them. And you know what day they finished it? Right, you guessed it, on the 25th of Kislev. And they so wanted to dedicate on the 25th of Kislev, the new Mishkan with all its brilliance and with its gold and the multicolored covers. But Hashem said, no, you have to wait till Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And of course, if God gives us a command, we do it. But you know, just like we cover the challah on Shabbat, when we make Kiddush, not to insult the challah, because we could be using the challah to make Kiddush too. The same thing, the days of the month feel like that also. So the 25th of Kislev was a little bit sad and said, why can't you dedicate the Mishkan today on the 25th of Kislev? And God said, I am going to repay you. I'm going to repay you with good, much more will be your reward. On the 25th of Kislev, they will rededicate the temple, and the Jewish nation will have that holiday forever and ever. I would like to share a story with you. This story goes back 28 years ago. It happened in a city in Germany on a Friday, like tomorrow. But tomorrow here we light the second candle, but that year on Friday, the 8th candle was going to be lit. And her husband, the rabbi of the city, lit the candles in the window. And she was going to go and light her Shabbos candles. And just before she lit the Shabbos candles, she looked one more time on the Chanukah menorah in the window. And do you know what she saw? Right across the street was the Nazi building. And they had a big flag and said, Jews will not survive. This is the last of the Jews. And then she saw her Hanukkah menorah burning. And she says, no, these lights will make the Jews survive forever. She grabbed her camera and she took a picture of the Hanukkah menorah in the window, and outside the window, the flag by the Nazis. Time went on, she developed it, and there was 1932, and she wrote exactly what I just said, that the lights of Hanukkah will save and be with the Jewish people forever. Just a few months later, in 1933, right after Hanukkah, Hitler came, and you know what he did? That's when Crystal Night started. And for 15 years, he was murdering, killing, robbing, separating Jews, murdering. But then, let me tell you the story, what happened. Today in Haifa, there's a man by the name of Yehuda who has that picture that on the back it says, the lights will keep the Jewish nation forever. So Hashem pays back the good. The Germans are gone. And not only that, let me tell you something else that's going on now. I have a nephew by the name of Yehuda Tachtel. He's my sister's son. Some of you have met my sister before. And do you know where he is? He is in Berlin, the chief rabbi of Berlin. And do you know what he did today? On the first night of Hanukkah? Yes, thank God. In the Brennendorf gate, where Hitler was standing, and spouting all the things that he said, today he lit the Hanukkah menorah on a big cherry picker all the way on the top. So the Nazis are gone, but the Jewish lights are burning. So to that, I would like to say L'chaim for Am Yisrael Chai. Since we are in Hanukkah, and as we just heard, it is customary to eat dairy, I had decided to share a L'chaim with a dairy drink. Now, the word L'chaim has two yuds in the middle. You know, a yud is a Jew. So we have a thing that a person doesn't drink themselves. Because when two youths get together, then we have chayim, we have life. When two Jews get together and they drink l'chaim and they say l'chaim to life, then God listens. So this is what we're going to have. We have the ice from me, friend.
I'm always happy to help.
Good. We're going to put 2 parts of vodka, if you don't mind doing. 2 vodkas.
Ooh.
One coffee liquor.
Oh, yum.
And 1/2 part of milk. But since I'm a lady, I try to put a little bit more in. But Rivkie, you could put only as much as you want.
Is it part?
So it is. So you could use cream, milk, whole milk, or anything. And if you really want to go a little further, you put some chocolate milk instead of white milk. We mix it up. I'll share with you. We make a bracha shahako, baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shahakol niyeh b'dvaro. L'chaim,
L'chaim.
to life. Am Yisrael chai.
L'chaim l'bracha. Am Yisrael.
And may we have merit the coming of Mashiach really right now with all of us. If you have l'chaim at home, please join me one more time. L'chaim. And now I have the pleasure to introduce, I was going to say a little girl. That's how I always think of her. She grew up here in our community. She was born here, raised here, and then she flew away. And now she's a young woman with a beautiful voice, kind and giving and sharing. Miriam Lakeritz.
Hello everyone. This is so fun. So nice to be back, even virtually, with the community, which is great. Yes, I recognize some faces, some I don't. I have been part of Mequon community literally since birth. So it's really fun to come back, and I know Zoom has its problems, but the great things about it are that you can also join people from. I'm actually in New Jersey right now. I'm not in New York because I'm at my brother's house, but so it's really nice to be here with all of you. I have a few songs to sing. I brought my guitar. Sometimes I do the more Broadway style. Sometimes I pull out the guitar and do that. So I hope you'll join me. Probably best to not unmute and sing, but I hope that at home that you are singing along. So I figured might as well start with Hine Matov. It's just so nice to be gathered virtually with everybody here. And I hope that you'll sing from home. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב מנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב מנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. No applause, but I see it, which is nice. So I was thinking about what songs to do. One song came to me. It's by Yaakov Shweki. It's called Your Time. And it's not particularly about Hanukkah, but it's about removing things that keep you from reaching your potential. And I think that it's really important, especially in like a time where we're looking at Geula and redemption, that we also recognize personal redemption also, that personally we also have things that hold us back, not just as a nation, but also as ourselves, that we have to get over and work through to, you know, reach our potential. And so I hope you'll enjoy this. It's called Your Time by Yaakov Shweki. Just gonna get my little thing set up here. 1 second. Little technical, just want to make sure. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Might have to stop to scroll because it's not letting me. That's fine. Okay. Looking through a crack in the glass, it's hard to see how you're gonna shake off the dust, ever break free. You see them reaching for the stars, but you're too slow. Little do you see it, little do you know. Wishing you could fly, but it's clear you're stuck in place. Never gonna make it to the front, just can't keep pace. You hear them calling your name, but you can't go. Little do you see it, little do you know. This is your time, so go and grab the moment, face the world and show it. Oh, oh, oh. This is your time to show the world the glory, celebrate your story. This is your time. Oh, 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 oh. This is your time. Watching as the dreams fade away, where have they gone? It's clear gonna give up the fight to carry on. You feel you're sinking in the sand, can move along. Those sounds of struggle, they write your song. Sometimes you feel you've reached the end of the line. Sometimes you just don't got the drive. But that's the moment when you're strongest of all your life. Watching as the dreams fade away, where have they gone? This is your time, so go and grab the moments, face the world and show it. Oh, oh, oh. This is your time to show the world the glory, celebrate your story. This is your time. Oh, 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 oh. This is your time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll do another one more. Just to end off, I think that it's just so nice to be here with everybody. And even though we're physically distanced, we are very emotionally connected with each other. And so the song called Achenu means brothers that were related, that were family. So I'd ask, can sing along in your house or put your arm around somebody or find someone in the Zoom window to lock eyes with. And just, even though we're kind of distant from each other, we're very much connected. 1 second, just want to see where to put my capo. Okay. We're gonna start that lower. 1 second. Kol beis Yisroel, עומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הניסונים בצרה ובשביה, עומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. מקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, ויוצאים את זרה ברחם, מיפל ליאורה, ומשיבול לגאולה השנה בגלה ובזמן קריב. מקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, ויוצאים את זרה ברחם, מיפל ליאורה, ומשיבול לגאולה השנה בגלה ובזמן קריב. I'll do one more time from the top, and I think that music is a really beautiful time to pray or to connect. So I would say as you sing it, think of something that you need or want and sing along. אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הניסונים בצרה, בצרה ובשביה, עומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הניסונים בצרה, בצרה ובשביה, עומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. מקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, ויוצאים את זרה ברחם, מיפל ליאורה, ומשיבול לגאולה השנה בגלה ובזמן קריב. השנה בגלה ובזמן קריב. Thanks everyone.
Miriam, amazing. Thank you so much for joining
My
us.
pleasure.
Such an unbelievable treat, Miriam, to sit here. Chanukah, you're in New Jersey, you're in New York, and we're in Wisconsin. We know your heart's in Wisconsin.
Totally.
Miriam, you are a beautiful young lady. Even though I see you when I close my eyes, a young girl, you are becoming more beautiful every day. Thank you so much. And I still
My pleasure. L'chaim, l'chaim with my
we may be
class.
invited to your wedding really soon.
Amen.
I came to Ari's wedding. Never know if you send him an invitation. Mazel tov. We should have say very soon.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on and for joining. We know that everyone's busy with their Hanukkah programs and events. So thanks, and some of her friends who joined. And we just would like to really thank everyone who came on tonight to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah, joining us from mostly in Wisconsin, but we also have Mushki from the Virgin Islands and Miriam now from the East Coast. And it's just really special to be able to be here together, united. And let's take the lights of Hanukkah and the flame and what Hanukkah represents. Let's continue to shine our light. Let's continue to make sure that it's bright and everyone can see and feel it. So happy Hanukkah to everyone. And we can keep this on if anyone would like to share or to wish each other a happy Hanukkah. We would love to hear from you. Enjoy the 8 nights, enjoy the 8 lights. Wishing everyone a joyous Hanukkah and a good Shabbos.
Happy Hanukkah, everyone, and good Shabbos. Happy Hanukkah and good Shabbos. Wonderful program.
Happy
Beautiful.
Chanukah, everybody.
Beautiful.
Happy